Hello, you're welcome to the 12th session of Business Mathematics. We're looking at decision trees, or what is called decision tree. End of session, you should be able to understand and apply the decision tree technique. Right. So on our next slide here, we have what decision tree is. So what is the decision tree all about? This is just a build up on probability distribution. Right. Decision tree over here shows a graphical representation of the sequence within which an event will occur or certain business decisions are made, right? Just to evaluate the possible what's it called, investment options, right? So in a decision tree, it consists of um, square node and circle nodes, where a square node represents a decision point or time. So a square node represents a decision point or time simply means that there could be a point where you're making a decision. So we are just representing uh, uh, what we have right on a decision tree, graphical representation. So it could get to a point where you make a decision, right? So we would say that at that point, you can decide to say produce or outsource a product. It could also be that a product will be profitable or not, right? Or you could decide, say, we want to um, build a or run a business such as say a mall. We could decide where to build it. Either we're going to build it in Techiman or Takwa, right? That's a decision you're making, taking other factors into consideration, right? We could also have what is called a circle node. A circle node also represents uncertain events with possible outcomes. So I could say that this one also represents a portion where the statement you have has to do with probabilities. So it is probable that the investment or what the more we are building in question here could be successful or unsuccessful, right? Okay. Here, the second thing is this branches. So if you're able to understand this, you can deal with any decision tree question. That's what I'm trying to say. So we have what is called branches. Branches, a branch coming out of a square node is an alternative, right? And a branch coming out of a circle node is a possible outcome of an uncertain event. All right. The third point is that each branch coming out of a circle node has an assigned probability. So it could be that the statement could say it is 0.35 successful, right? Or 35% successful. It means that in this case, it is 55, sorry, it's 35% successful simply means that it's 65% unsuccessful, right? And then you should know what this also means. The sum of probabilities of all branches out of a circle node must be 1. So all probabilities must sum up to 1. We have what is called a complement rule. The complement rule is saying that if you have one probability, given say it is 0.35 successful, the complement of that probability is 1 minus 0.35, and that will give you 0.65. So it is 35% successful and 65% unsuccessful, right? When it has to do with monetary values, profit, revenue, and after making a decision node, that is are placed at the end of a branch coming out of the node. So when it has to do with monetary value, say profit, revenue, right? They are placed at the end of the branch coming out of a node. That is what it's trying to say. Okay. Here, cost incurred for making a particular decision are typically placed on the branch coming out of a node. Just to represent that that value is a cost. Okay. And decision at any point in time is based on what is called the expected monetary value, EMV, right? So if this problem here is based on profits, then we'll say that we'll select the decision with the highest expected monetary value. That's what it's saying here. So solution to the entire problem after drawing the decision tree, representing the decisions with the various square nodes and circle nodes, right? When you are done, remember all these nodes are very represented with numbers. So if I draw my first node being, say, a circle node, sorry, being a square node, I'll say that is node 1. Second node will be my node 2, all the way to the final node or the highest node, right? So the solution to the entire problem is based on so-called folding back process. So what you do is that after drawing the decision tree, numbering all the nodes with respect to the statement or the problem you have at hand, when you get to the final node, what you do is that you fold back from the highest node to the least node in order to make your decision. That is why it's called decision tree, right? So you fold back from the highest node to the first node, or the highest node to the least node. Say we have from node 1 to node 10, we start from node 10 all the way back to node 1. That is the folding back process. The time moves from what? Left to right. Okay, so branches out of a node are assumed yet to occur, right? Branches into a node are assumed to have already occurred. This is a practical illustration of how a decision tree looks like. A sequential decision tree, right? If a decision situation requires a series of decisions, then a decision tree becomes the best method for decision analysis, right? A sequential decision tree illustrates a situation requiring a series of decisions, right? So here it could be that the decision point is that we either purchase an apartment building with a cost of $800,000, or we purchase a land with a cost of 120,000. Hey, sorry, 200,000, right? So here making a decision and then represent that node with a square node. Represent that with a square node, right? Okay. And then the branches coming out here, we write the cost on it. Remember that if it has to do with cost, it's written on the branch, right? So we have a second node here based on the statement that we could decide. It could be a possible probability that when you purchase an apartment building here, okay, the population growth is 0.60 and the no population growth is 0.40. That is a circle node, because at that point they have possible outcomes, right? And then with revenues at the end of the node, say with no population we'll have 225,000, and then population growth it will be 2 million, right? We have a third node based on this branch over here, which is when you purchase a land. It could be that the population growth in 3 years, right, will be 0.6. No population growth in 3 years will be 0.4, right? So that's how the decision tree looks like. It goes on and on and on to the final node. So we represent each of the nodes with their respective node, whether it's a square node or it's a circle node, whether it's a decision or it has to do with a possible outcome of an uncertain event. Sorry. Branches with the greatest expected value are selected. I said that earlier, that with this particular decision tree topic, if the problem has to is based on profit, the highest expected monetary value is selected, right? So this is what we do. Determining the best decision by using a decision tree involves computing the expected value at each probability node or circle node. So when it has to do with, say, 6 here, could start with 7, could start with 7. So 7 over here is, I want to multiply the probability by the monetary value. So probability 0.30 by 2,300,000 plus 0.70 by 1 million. That's what you have here for node 7. And that will give you the final value of this. And then you write this value here on the 7th node, because we're working on the 7th node, which is a circle node. Move on to the 6th node, same idea, 0.80, because a circle node, 0.80 by this 3 million plus 0.20 by 700,000. That's what we have here as 2.54 million. And you write it on the 6th node. You move on to the 5th node. The 5th node has to do with what do we call cost, right? So you see that this one, you're going to incur a cost of 600,000. You have a monetary value here on top of node 7. So it is the money you have or the revenue minus the cost. So 1,300,000, 390,000, sorry, minus 600,000. That will give you a monetary value. And then you compare it with what you have here, right? And the highest is selected. So this minus this, what is going to give you, you write it somewhere. Say 1,390,000 gives us minus this gives us a higher value than this 210,000. We select the highest value, which is 700 and what 90,000. That has to do the decision node. It is the revenue minus the revenue here minus the cost. That give you 790,000, and then you have a revenue here. So between these two revenues, select the highest. We write it on the sixth node. Move on to the fourth node, the same idea until you get to the final node, which is node 1. So when you get to node 1, you have a monetary value, you have a cost, you have monetary value here, 1,360,000. You have a cost here. Here you have 1,290,000. You have a cost of 800,000. So when you get to node 1, here the final node is 1,290,000 minus 800,000. That will give you a monetary value, right? And then 1,360,000 minus the highest is going to be selected because we are dealing with profit, right? Okay, so select the highest one. So this is a practical example on decision tree, right? As Empower Oil Company is trying to decide whether to make a fuel additive, which it claims will improve fuel consumption. Unfortunately, there are a number of competitors in the market who are also on a similar product, and as Empower Oil Company knows that if it decides to market the product, it will face stiff competition from the other oil companies. The company has the option to start the whole project with a market research survey to see if motorists will purchase the product or without market survey research survey. Sorry. If the company decides not to carry out a market research survey, they will market the product or sell the rights to the products. If it goes ahead and markets the product, it estimates the probability that sales will be high is only 0.2. So sales will be low is 0.8, right? When the product is marketed, sales would be either high or low, right? If Asempa Oil Company carries out a market research survey, there is a 0.43 probability that the survey will be favorable, right? The company can decide either to market the product or sell the rights to the product, right? Product, whatever the results of the survey, right? If the outcome of the survey is favorable, there is a 0.3 probability that the sales will be high, right? So based on that, we'll say that the complement is 0.65, right? Okay. Sales will be high if the product is marketed. Additionally, if the outcome from the survey is unfavorable, there is a 0.09 probability that sales will be high if the product is marketed, right? A market research survey will cost the company 0.70 million. At any stage, if the sales of the products are high, the company will make a profit of 20 million. And if the sales are low, the company will lose 2 million. Also, at any stage, if the company decides to sell the right to the products, the company will make a profit of 4 million Ghana cedis. So, question says that draw a decision tree for this problem. As a financial analyst hired by the company, recommend a course of action to the oil company with reasons. C, the consulting firm that carried out the market research survey has indicated that the probability of favorable outcome from the survey was erroneously given as 0.43. If the correct probability of a favorable outcome from the survey is now given as 0.30, will this affect your recommendation in B? So what I would say is that this is a decision tree question. Take your time, analyze the question. This is a decision tree question. Take your time and analyze the question. Every question or every sentence you have here matters, right? It's more like a build up. Don't try skipping any of them. You have to take each of the sentence one after the other, analyze it, check, is this talking about a decision, or is it talking about a possible outcome? It has to do with probability, which is a circle node, or decision, which is a square node. And then you write all the nodes accordingly, and then based on the values and the probabilities you have in the question. So after doing that, this is what you have, right? You should have something like this, which is node A here to node H, right? So node 1, could say node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4 here, node 5, node 6, node 7, node 8, right? Based on the information you have, you should have that. Decision is to market survey or do no survey, right? Is to survey it or no market survey. So that is our decision. That is the reason why it's a square node here. And then the second node has to do with a circle node. It could be favorable when you survey it. It could be favorable or unfavorable, and you were given a probability of 0.43 favorable. That means unfavorable is 0.57, right? And then the third node has to do with a square node, because if it's unfavorable, right, that is to sell the rights, or you could also market the product, right? And then you get a 4 million Ghana cedis revenue if you sell the rights. If the market survey is unfavorable and you sell the rights, yeah, you get 4 million. It is just a build up of what we've done. So kindly take your time, analyze the question, and you should be able to deal with this decision tree question ideally, right? So we move on to node D. Based on the sentence, if the market the product, sales could be high with a probability of 0.09. So the complement is that sales could also be low, and the probability is 0.91, which is 1 minus 0.09. And then you have a revenue of this and a cost of minus 2 million, right? And then you move on to the other nodes, right? So this is how the decision tree will look like when you are done with it. So after being able to draw this decision tree, what is left with is deal with what is called the folding back process to find the expected monetary value, right? Based on the decision, whether to do the market survey or market research survey or no survey, right? What's the decision are you making? Are you going to select this, or are you going to select the market survey based on the value you have? So the folding back process, right? So let me try and explain some of them to detail. So let's pick node, the final node here, say node G, right? So node H. Node H is here as what we have here, right? If it has to do with a circle node, you would have a probability and a monetary value, right? What you do is that we just multiply the probability by the money you have here. I would say that. So just this by this plus this by this. And whatever you get, write is on node H. So I would say node H is 20 million, right? By 0.2 probability, or probability by the money, minus 2 million that you had by the probability, and that will give you 2.4 million. You write on the node H, write on the eighth node, right? Or node H. Then move on to node G. So folding back, if it's 1 to 8, you do it 8 to 1. So accordingly, you move on to node G, right? And you come to node F, E, come to D, come to C, A, B, A, right? That is how you do it, right? From node H to node A, right? So I'll say from node H here, I'll come to node G. Node G, then I'll have a monetary value here, which is the one we had from node H to be 2.4 million will be here, right? So you see node G here, we have 4 million and a 2.4 million, which is here, which is 4 million here. For node G, we have to sell the right, we have 4 million. And based on node H, we'll say that node G has also 2.4 million. So compare the two, select the highest. We'll say highest is 4 million. So 4 million will be written on node G. Then we move on to node F, right? This probability by the money, right? Plus this probability by the money. And what you will get, right, on node F, we come to node E, same idea. right? Compare what you have here for node F to node, what you have here, 4 million, to what you get here for node F, and then the highest will be written on node E. Then you come to node D, this probability by this plus this probability by this, you write it on node D. Compare what you have here for node D to this 4 million, the highest will be selected and it will be written on node C. Same for node B. So it goes on and on and on until you get to node A, right? Because here you can see that node A with no market value, so with no market survey, you get a profit of 4 million. And then when there's a market survey, the profit will be 4.03. So based on this, we would say the decision is to conduct a market survey for a higher what expected profit or expected monetary value. And what would be the recommendation? We would say that conduct a market survey, right? If the survey proves unfavorable, sell the rights to the products. And on the other hand, if it proves favorable, market the product for a higher expected profit, right? That is how we do decision tree. I hope you've gotten this process or procedure, right? So this is the C part where the probability has to be changed from 0.43 to 0.3. So you have this. So now 0.3 favorable, it will be 0.7 unfavorable. And then you have these monetary values written at the end of the branches. What you do is that I'm going to multiply this probability by this value here plus, right, this by this, and that will give us this answer over here, right? Say 2.8 million plus 1.7 million. That is this by this gives us, I think, 2.8 million. 0.3 by this gives us 1.7. So the summation of that is 4.5 million. That will be on this node over here, right? So that then the node A will be 4 million. That is what we have here. It's okay. So no market survey based on node A. No market survey. Expected profit is 4 million. So to conduct a market survey, then the expected profit will be this 4.51 million minus this cost of 0.7 million, and that will give us 3.8 billion. So comparing this 4 million when there is no market survey, the profit is 4 million. When you conduct a market survey, the profit is now 3.8 million. So the decision is that we do not conduct a market survey, then we get a higher profit of 4 million, right, by selling the rights. So yeah, the recommendation is now changed based on the change in the uncertain event with possible outcomes. It was changed from 0.43, I guess, to 0.3, and that has changed our recommendation to the oil company, right?